ディズニーが最初に開発し、その後スピンアウトし、オープンソースとなったドラゴンチェーンから、ドラゴンチェーン商用プラットフォームおよびドラゴンチェーンインキュベーターが登場。まず資産となるデータの保護に重点を置いているドラゴンチェーンプラットフォームを見ていきましょう。サーバーレス構造を用いた拡張性高いプラットフォームは、スマートコントラクトの開発者たちが Java、Python、Node、C# など使い慣れたプログラミング言語で作り込まれるようパッケージ化されています。さらに、すべてのスマートコントラクトが Amazon AWS とその他の機能にフルアクセスできます。次はドラゴンチェーンインキュベーターを見ていきましょう。ドラゴンチェーンインキュベーターはブロックチェーンプロジェクトのローンチに必要なプロセスを標準化しました。では次にドラゴンチェーンの市場を見ていきましょう。暗号通貨、マーケティング、法律、ソフトウェア開発、採用といったあらゆる分野のスペシャリストたちが集まるエコシステムになっています。また、この市場には開発者たちが再利用目的で収益化したビルド済みのスマートコントラクタライブラリーも含まれています。最後に紹介するのがドラゴンチェーンプラットフォームとエコシステム全体のすべてのサービスにアクセスするためのトークン化されたマイクロライセンスです。ブロックチェーンビジネスマジック用に設計されています。あなたも最も安全で柔軟性が高くビジネス仕様のブロックチェーンプラットフォームとエコシステムの一員になれます。10月2日、いよいよドラゴン発売開始。
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. The World Blockchain Roundtable has been hijacked. Welcome to the 189th episode. Bitcoin's birthday party, January 3rd. What are we going to celebrate? Our host for today, William, Legacy Zach from the Legacy Right, and myself, Andrew Joseph from the Legacy Right. Satoshi Sean's not here, potentially coming. Greg is not here, potentially coming. Lisa's not here, potentially coming. Hold on just a second. Joe is out, potentially coming towards the end. Dave, not here. Aaron Day.
I think Joe might have joined John in the tunnels.
Potentially, yeah. Aaron Day is not going to be joining us today. Potentially, maybe down the road, but not today. John, who I do believe, would appreciate such an old joke. And sorry. Welcome in, guys. Like I said, it's been hijacked. So today's episode is celebrating the third birthday of Bitcoin. And let me go ahead. We'll get right into the questions.
Well, we're like, I think last week if you can go back to that, I think it shows the lots, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We had last week's show what was last week's show? Something about if Satoshi revealed himself. What would he think of the current industry or Bitcoin, or what would he have said? And this is a participation show, whatever. So you can earn a lot by asking questions or becoming a panelist on the show. You earn a lot, which is layer ownership tokens. And
Satoshi would have revealed himself, but rumor has it he might have been in might have been in Hawaii at the time. So
a rumor. It's just a rumor. Just a rumor. I can neither confirm nor deny.
That's right. But I can confirm that this is the world's first DAO-based blockchain podcast. So, like I said, let's go ahead and jump into the program here with the questions.
Sounds good.
Just a second.
First of all, Happy New Year, everybody.
Right?
Wow. 2024 is dead and done. Over.
Yeah. It moved pretty quick. What about Ohio State, Zach?
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
41-21. What a game.
Yeah.
Well, there's always next year.
That's right.
There's always next year, Oregon. There's always next year.
So what do we celebrate? Bitcoin's birthday is January 3rd. And, last week we talked about Satoshi Nakamoto. So this week it's kind of Bitcoin's birthday. So it's almost like a tie-in to last week's show, right? I think Bitcoin, it was certainly revolutionary and still is, introducing a whole new technology of blockchain and programmable money. That's new in human history. Money seems to always be tied, at least in the last few thousand years, has been tied to government. And so we look to our government for
Stability.
the institutionality of money. We look to government as being the stable force, the arbiter, and the honest broker or honest third party, if you will. We've looked for money to be something that is provided to society by governments. And Bitcoin, Bitcoin is one of the, it's the first programmable money, but now that has been changed into a digital form of gold. So it's not even a currency anymore. Hence the over my ear here, the hijack of Bitcoin that some would propose is accurate picture of what took place. I lived it, and I would agree and concur with Roger Ver and Patterson's statements in the book. But so we're here to celebrate a birthday. Tomorrow is January 3rd, and that will be Bitcoin's birthday. So that begs the question: what do we celebrate about Bitcoin? I guess, right?
We celebrate Trump coin.
Trump coin, yeah, and all the other meme coins that came about after the fact, right?
Well,
Joe Biden,
sadly, a Trump coin might not be a meme. If it is, it's a pretty sad, unhappy meme.
Yeah,
with tie-ins to the central bank digital currency that they're definitely wanting to create,
trying to pivot with.
Yeah.
So,
but well, it started in 2009, right? So when the first block was mined and Satoshi introduced it was January 3rd. So I think his vision of a free market currency and the whole cyberpunks as a group in a group chat forum that talked about this and others that came before them and failed, and others that came before them that were centralized, and Satoshi certainly wanted to create something that would be have a small inflation rate, not just a static number or a descending number of tokens or coins. And so the whole mining process, proof of work, was introduced. It just it's a technology that I think is huge. You can go back in time and think of all the different things that have been created and invented, going back to Tesla and AC and DC and that whole argument, and is kind of, I liken that to like the fork of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash as a fork, AC versus DC, a little bit. But flight, the automobile, transistors, the internet, the computers that we have today, and way up there near the top of the list is programmable money, because it's still in its infant stages, but we have to think of the heart of this invention.
Yeah.
That this is the opportunity where we can have money that is not centralized, and certainly not centralized in a government entity. And that's what Satoshi, I think that's what needs to be celebrated. Not what Bitcoin is today, but its potential of that technology for the future. There you go. That's my 2 cents.
Right. Well, you said the AC. Sorry. BCAD, and
Oh,
it's like in
ACDC?
instances, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
CCDC.
That's like it. It's like instances, right, or arcs, and
Mm.
it's starting a new pivot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and you think of like going back, let's look at Columbus. He was trying to find something. He's trying to find a different route to Asia, and
yeah,
to be able to trade spices and silks and whatever, and
Mhm.
a faster, cheaper route. Instead, he discovers North America basically, and we're not going to go into all of that, but it took hundreds and hundreds of years for North America to become what it is today. And the rate of technology growing at an exponential rate that we see today, I think Bitcoin will be someday that idea of programmable money that's outside a third party and eliminates third parties is going to be eventually adopted some way, somehow, and make a giant impact and change for humanity for the better. That's what I'm hopeful for. And that's what I would celebrate on Bitcoin's birthday. What do you
I
think,
mean,
Zach?
speaking of AC, alternate current, that's effectively what the blockchain is. Like all the energy input that goes into the mining data and the innovation of different forking technologies.
Mhm.
That's alternate current to its T. Like without AC, without Tesla, and then of course Edison's hijacking of Tesla's AC. And I mean, you probably don't have Bitcoin,
Right.
so you don't have these projects that come about, and you don't have uh, the expansion of an alternative away from more centralized control of money.
Mhm.
So we do have to thank Tesla for the discovery of AC, or not
Yeah.
the discovery of AC, but the forging of AC and
Right.
what it is naturally, and how we were able to utilize alternate current in
Mhm.
order to achieve these projects.
Mhm. Yeah.
and it
Good.
just goes. Let's go back to your original intent of what Satoshi wanted versus, like you said, Edison, who basically forked it and created his own interpretation, and
Mhm.
basically it never was
Right.
never was as it wasn't what it was potentially could have been.
True. True. Um,
Mhm.
and you go back to kind of the movement of people looking at, the cyberpunks and what
Mhm.
they posted and what their thinking was, and what Bitcoin is today. That certainly is a different fork and viewpoint, and use case. And then, so I think there's a lot of evidence to state that Bitcoin was supposed to be a currency and not just a store of value. And then there's others that are, the small blockers and the Bitcoin maximalists that believe that Bitcoin can become a currency eventually, but it needs to have a stronger position in the world as a store of value first, and then
Mhm.
transition to a currency. And there is a lot to be said about that. There's I think it's a valid argument. Um, um, Unfortunately, it lends itself to um,
Centralization.
yeah, and state capture. Um, and I think when we get into the questions, we'll probably dig into that. But that's one of the that's kind of, I guess, on the setup of things. Of you can think of, if we need to establish Bitcoin as a store of value, and an increasing valued, an asset that increases in value over time because of scarcity, then later, as technology blocks expanded or whatever we do, we could then convert it into a currency. Um, there's an argument for that is a possibility. I don't, how can I say it? Because it goes all the way to the 8th, 10th, 12th decimal, and you can expand it further than the SAT, or the smallest increment of Bitcoin is if it becomes an inflated value of outrageous number, then those sats still could be the currency or the trading, kind of like pennies and nickels and dimes and quarters, etc. But is it really so? At this point in time, to celebrate Bitcoin, you can say is celebrate Bitcoin's birthday. It is not, a peer-to-peer electronic cash like it says in the white paper. So the announcement to the world of its birth of being a peer-to-peer electronic cash is kind of like a baby being born, and
I'm going to be president.
The name is given,
and
the name is given, but then it gets changed in the courts to a different name, and it's no longer that name. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, for what it's worth.
Speaking of questions, do you want to jump into them real quick?
Let's do it.
Will do.
All right. Just a second. Let me hear a little more. Dear friends, the next episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable is on Thursday, January 22nd. January 2nd. The World Blockchain
you don't gotta
Roundtable
read
is
that, Andrew.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, you don't have to read that.
We're good.
That's just explaining to everybody on Den.Social. So go to Den.Social, everybody, if you haven't joined, and join that. It's an alternative to the fuckery of X.
Right.
Yeah.
Jacob Wayne has posted a question: if Bitcoin has been commandeered, then what is left? What is there left to celebrate, or can we celebrate its influence on the tech space as a whole? It's a good question.
Yeah, good old Jacob Wayne.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. But I'll start off. I guess I'll say we pretty much already kind of discussed a little bit to open up on celebrating it. I mean, the fact of what it could do, what its potential is, what it's led to, the alternatives or the forks, because Bitcoin was essentially hijacked in terms towards what the white paper presents. Mm-hmm. So the vision of Satoshi is kind of gone, but not really.
You want to give him? Hold on. Do you want to give him 50 of your matter, or are you trying to give him energy?
Oh, that's my bad. I meant to say.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to just hit that up arrow over the 1.7?
Yeah, just hit that up. Yeah. I mean, you can tip him.
Yeah.
That is a good question. That's up to you, though.
I don't know. You want?
Yeah, I'll have 50. Let's go with 50.
You're welcome, Jacob.
There you
go. You're a good sport.
Otherwise, energy.
Right.
Well, anyway, as you were saying, Zach, I'm sorry.
No, but I mean, the celebration that we should have is what the potential of it, what it has given to the world, and maybe, like, to your point that you just said, maybe the small blocker Bitcoin maxis out there that believe that Bitcoin has to expand into a store of value ratio first before it takes over as a new reserve could be the transition that it needs. So maybe we are on the right footing for Bitcoin, or maybe it's just presenting other alternatives around the matter that Bitcoin has been abused, and you start seeing more alternatives start rocking through in the use of Satoshi's vision, like Bitcoin Cash, like Monero, like the Xano token. I mean, because there's all different. What's great about the blockchain, Zcash, yeah. But what's great about the blockchain is there's just so many different ways that you can use it and explore it and expand on it. So that's enough of a crypto tard of me to talk. So I'm gonna move on and let the emperor speak.
Well, if it had, he poses the question with an if Bitcoin really has been commandeered, then what do we have left to celebrate? And there are a lot of people that have moved on from Bitcoin and don't want to participate with Bitcoin for that reason, because they believe it's been commandeered, it's been hijacked, its original purpose has been nullified, and it's become digital gold. And there are those that recognize that and say, well, I still want to participate in the concept of digital gold. And, I like that idea in that I think it's still not financial advice. Do your own research and don't invest more than you're willing to lose. But there is that opportunity, that potentiality. Gold not all the gold has been mined on this planet. And who knows, we might be able to mine, asteroids pretty soon for gold. So the gold scarcity is still present at the current time. Having said that, Bitcoin scarcity is locked at 21 million, Bitcoin, and most of which have already been mined. So this, unless Bitcoin Core, which is your core developers who hold the code and would be able to change the code, unless they were to somehow, some way increase that quantity above 21 million Bitcoin. So I think that the being commandeered and what is left to celebrate is just the technology and that opportunity. Because let's think about it. If you want to move a lot of gold, if you're traveling or you're moving from one country to another country, it's not easy to move all of your gold from one country to another country, because now you got to declare it and you're going to be taxed. Whereas Bitcoin is digital gold, and who knows if the other country is going to know what your wallets are or how much gold or digital gold you hold. And so it could be theoretically moved from country to country and not be declared. I'm not suggesting you would do that, of course. Do what you will. The potentiality is there. So I think that is really, if we're going to keep it as digital gold and look at it as digital gold, that is an amazing ability to be able to transmit or move your gold, shall we say, across borders without interruption, without taxation. You have that option, if you will. You might be breaking the law of the country you're leaving or the country you're going to, but it is an option. Whereas physical gold is a little bit harder. That's truly is smuggling, right? So we can celebrate that capability that Bitcoin provides. And can we still celebrate its influence on the tech space as a whole? Absolutely. I mean, the whole concept of blockchain, we've created a whole new form or different type of database that has all kinds of use cases. That's why we see 10,000 different cryptos out there now, is because all the different use cases. Now some of them might be just meme tokens, but some of them have real solid
dead projects,
utility. Dead projects, real utility, real value. Den.Social has a token, 3 different tokens, to be honest. And Dragon Chain, and look at all the others out there that provide different services, layer 2s, layer 1s, and all kinds of utilities that burst out of the whole blockchain technology that Satoshi brought to the world. So we certainly can celebrate that and those influences, and privacy coins and tokens. Now because Bitcoin is pseudo-anonymous, now we have true privacy coins that can't be traced. They're inside a black box, if you will. So I think there's a lot to celebrate from the technology, to answer Jacob Wayne's question.
I do know that when somebody is like a corporation buys out another corporation, what they'll do is they'll step in and run things as they're operating for a while the same way, and then they'll slowly make transition for to not only merge the two departments, so the different departments under one roof, but to take the company or the corporation in a new direction. And that seems to be what happened, at least in the traditional sense, to Bitcoin Core as a development house. So, I mean, we can. It's like Jacob said, we can celebrate it as an influence, but the original intent is completely gone. There's no more, anarchy minded thinking in that particular development house.
Mm-hmm. To
that
comment,
thinking though, I'm gonna push back on that anarchist dream aspect though. That has potential to come back even with Bitcoin.
It does.
I mean, just
I mean,
on the
it's not
level
gone
of
forever, but
yeah.
the intent that they're under, the influence they're under now, is it's under wraps. They don't
Sure.
want to go in that direction because they've obviously got an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but governments come and go, and they can't live on forever. And then there's always, I mean, I live under that. We live in the real world, so there's always going to be a governing body, but there's always going to be a new governing force that comes into power. So, effectively, the potential of Bitcoin becoming what it was intended could be so in the future as the centralized authority that has expanded over the decades and even the centuries, the last couple centuries now. I mean, that will eventually come to a hailing stop because you can't continue to go on this Ponzi scheme frenzy of living off of a debt ratio for too long. So eventually, the United States is going to collapse. I mean, as far as the federal government, the governments of Europe are eventually going to collapse. Well, they are pretty much collapsing. Russia is going to eventually collapse. So you're going to end up seeing a different world order kind of come out of all of this. So you will be able to start over.
True.
It's
Well,
just can you?
It's a lot harder for Russia to make that turn. This is compared to the United States, because the United States has never had a consistent, solid identity. They've always, pivoted to another instant of an identity.
Well, neither has Russia. You
Well,
could
I mean,
argue
Russia's
that neither has Russia.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Russia, I mean, I guess they're like the big brother in this situation. So,
Czar 15 in the chat, he's right. It never actually moves unless you move it from one wallet to another wallet. So you're physically moving from one country to another country, and you're asked to declare if you have anything in your possession. So the question is it really in your possession? It's sitting on a wallet on a blockchain, and it's kind of in the ether, right? So it's really not in your possession. So from a legal perspective, you could now. Governments have caught on to that idea and pivoting and changing their laws and the regulations on what you have to declare when you go into another country. And so yes, he is absolutely right. From a technical standpoint, Bitcoin never moved. Once you're crossing the border, it may move from a wallet address to another address, but it's still sitting out there on a blockchain in Ether. It's not physically in your possession. And then I think his other thing is it's still anarchist, just at a different level, in his opinion. And I agree with him on that comment as well. Bitcoin still has, there's mixers available out there to mix your Bitcoin, change it, suit it, obfuscate who is holding what Bitcoin or a portion thereof. So that is part of the anarchist movement or libertarianist, viewpoints.
I mean, I remember Roger Ver talking about that on several of his videos back a couple years ago about how they didn't want to make it private on the base layer of Bitcoin Cash, that they wanted to have that option to have mixers and stuff like that. So that was something he was
Yeah.
Very
Bitcoin.
encouraging
Yeah.
consideration.
Years ago, Bitcoin Cash instituted a mixer, shall we say, within its wallet, and it works very well. Very, very well. There's still there was a, like, I don't know, there's $1 million challenge to try to break it and trace a transaction to that effect or something. I don't know if it's still out there or not, but um, it was profound what they were doing. You're poor.
Not sure. I'm not sure what that was supposed to mean. So just figured I'd throw it up there. Let's go ahead and jump to the second question.
Ruh-roh.
Back.
I'm bashing Trump. I'm bashing Trump with this question.
Initial stance. Trump's position on Bitcoin has evolved. He stated in 2017 that he wasn't a fan, and his focus was to support the dollar and not the cryptocurrencies. To tame Bitcoin, he approved the trading of Bitcoins on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange as a futures contract in December of 2017. In 2019, he described Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as not money and criticized their volatility, suggesting they were based out of thin air. His shift in policy. As the 2024 presidential election approached, Trump began to pivot his stance on cryptocurrency. In speeches and public addresses, notably at the Bitcoin 2024 conference in Nashville, he proposed the idea of establishing a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. Question: what is the history behind Trump's proposal for Bitcoin to become part of a government fiat's backing, and how feasible is this proposal?
No, I think we're living in history. We're living in history. The history is the fact that it's being utilized as a commodity asset in the reserve of the dollar as number goes up. So Bitcoin just hit 100,000. It's since dropped, but it's since kind of stabilized around that 93 to like 96,000 range, right? I haven't looked in a minute, but it seems like it's staying within that $90,000 range. So I would say that his shift in policy is using Bitcoin exactly as that, as a commodity asset, the new commodity in propping the dollar up since the petrodollar has effectively failed. So he's going to start pivoting. He still wants to hold the dollar as the highest standard. So he's going to utilize Bitcoin as the means to prop up the dollar so that we still have the world's reserve currency. And so a new petrodollar will be created. It'll just be to a standard of Bitcoin.
Yes. Yep.
William, would you like to go first? Would you like me to respond to your question first?
No, I'll go ahead and go. It's just that the U.S. has to have because we don't really manufacture anything here, and our dollar isn't backed by anything except for our military strength now in the world and our influence in the world. That is really what it comes down to. So I don't think Donald Trump's position on the dollar has changed at all, other than he wants it to reign supreme over the world and be the world's reserve currency. BRICS is going to give it a run for its money, and it's again still in its pretty much infant stages. But the BRICS nations have come up with a platform and kind of a standardization or a framework, if you will, on how the BRICS currency would be backed by various different commodities, namely gold or a percentage thereof. And each country would hold a certain amount of gold, and it would be proved. It would have a, shall we say, a proof of ownership or proof of holding of gold to back the BRICS currency. So when Trump was, I think, looking at that and getting advice from others about how do we support the dollar and continue the dollar beyond just using our military might or flexing our muscles militarily around the world, I think he said and realized from people who told him, well, we're going to have to back it by something. And we're going to have to continue to try to continue to back it because we've got to compete with the BRICS nations that are doing just that. And recently we've seen gold also hit an all-time high as China and other central banks have started purchasing more and more gold. And the U.S., nobody knows what's really in Fort Knox anymore, if it's still got gold in it or not. And nobody's, even a U.S. representative that is elected to Congress by we the people, isn't allowed to go in there and audit it. Nor is the Treasury Secretary allowed to really go in there and audit, even though supposedly Mnuchin says it's there, when he was the Secretary of Treasury under Trump. Speaking of which, in December 2017, he and Trump were the ones that allowed Bitcoin to be tamed. And I'm using the word tame Bitcoin because the president of the Mercantile Exchange, the CME, which was the first financial asset in the US and probably the world that actually was allowed people, shall we say, Wall Streeters, to speculate on Bitcoin. And that created the dump in price when Bitcoin hit its $20,000 mark in December of 2017. And we went into a bear market for years in the Bitcoin space or the crypto world because of that action. So I think his stance on Bitcoin certainly has changed, but it's changed because the valuation of Bitcoin and what it represents and what it could be as, shall we say, digital gold. I think he realized that's what we need. We need to back it. Now, it's crazy to me. Is it feasible that Bitcoin could be used as part of a backing, shall we say, or commodity to back the valuation of gold? Well, printing dollars to buy Bitcoin is ludicrous and it's crazy. But then what are you doing? You're creating inflation by printing dollars to buy Bitcoin, and then the government becomes a hodler of Bitcoin. At what point does Bitcoin get sold by the government in a squeeze because the government now needs to cash out some of its Bitcoin and is almost like a rug pull on its citizens or people around the world of Bitcoin out as a rug pull? But if they really wanted to back dollars and use a certain amount of Bitcoin to back it, I'm sorry, I'm carrying on and on and on here, then the price of Bitcoin is going to go insane. What is it? One Bitcoin is going to be $1 billion? I don't know. $10 billion for one Bitcoin? I don't know. Who's to say? I just don't think it's, well, I don't, it's Bitcoin was supposed to eliminate third parties, and I don't trust the government as a third party anymore.
Yeah.
Man.
Some people do.
Yeah. Balances key. That's right. Well, I can see how this plays into it from a political perspective. It's because he's just a second. Yes. Sorry, I had something else to say. You do. I can see how he would pivot into this from a political perspective because the way the narrative has developed. I can see him using it as a bait and switch to try to get people to vote for him, and he's really realistically not wanting to have that as an actual option. He's just saying these things, but because he's a narcissist. That's what they do, is that they lie. But at the same time, if he is privileged to stuff about Fort Knox that most people aren't, and he knows that it's basically empty, he doesn't have an option. So,
good point.
It can go either way. It just depends. We'll find out. A couple weeks he'll be in office, and if they're going to actually do something about it, they're going to actually do something about it. So,
yep.
Into the next question.
One last comment. Someone, I think Coca-Cola put on their BTC, ETC, LTC, and that's a great example of diversification. And my thought is, rather than use Lightning Network on Bitcoin, just use Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash if you want to spend or transact real quickly and have your, it's kind of like diversifying. Okay, so you're going to buy gold and you're going to spend silver, and that's exactly what Litecoin was supposed to be at the ratio of Bitcoin to gold and Litecoin to silver. There's more silver in the world than there is gold, and hence the ratio. But when you look at the real price of Bitcoin and the price of Litecoin, it certainly isn't that ratio, is it? But Litecoin works. It's been stable. Bitcoin Cash works. It's been stable. And both of them offer privacy capabilities. And I like ETC as well, especially since the fork from Ethereum.
Just two things real quick. I just wanted to jump back to something you was talking about. You was talking about bricks. That's been something that they've been working towards since the 90s. Do you think they're actually going to be able to successfully pull it off? I mean, there's still some speculation about if they're actually going to follow through with it because of the tension between some of the member countries of the agreement. India, China, for example.
Absolutely. They're going to be able to pull it off. I don't know when. I don't know how soon. If we do fall into World War III, then that's essentially when it happens. That's one scenario that would initiate very quickly the BRICS as another world currency. But yeah, it's definitely going to happen because we weaponize the dollar. Biden weaponized the dollar against Russia. We confiscated Russia's assets and bank accounts. And we have far reaching beyond just our borders to do that. So by weaponizing your world reserve currency is a very dangerous thing to do. And that, I think, spurred and increased the rate of growth and acceptance in the concept or idea of BRICS. So when we were supposed to be more like Switzerland with a reserve currency. And let's face it, history is on the side of BRICS or whatever else pops up, because world reserve currencies typically don't last but 100 years, if that. So, before it was the British pound, and before that it was the Dutch, and Rome used to be the world's currency, right? So it's inevitable. It's part of, it's in our history that we choose and migrate towards a different reserve currency.
It's interesting about the history. Oh, I was going to say it's history about the history perspective when it comes to world reserves, because the United States is on par to not even outlasting a century, because we really didn't become the world reserve currency until about 1971. I mean, you could go back to post World War II, I guess, but on a realistic standard, it was 1971 when the gold standard was removed, and then what was it? A couple years after that, they needed to tie it to something, so they tied it to petroleum reserves and created the petrodollar. And we're not even near to. We have 20 years to go until the anniversary of the century anniversary to the end of World War II and Bretton Woods and all that. And then we're 40 years. We're about or actually less than 50 years, but to the century of the dollar being removed off of the gold standard and the petrodollar being created. So we're defying history.
Sure.
In the opposite, in the negative, we're defying history in the negative.
Do you think, William, that they're going to actually Trump will actually allow things like Mimble-Wimble to proceed?
No, not a chance. I think his constitutionally, his job is to protect the dollar at all cost. And if protecting the dollar is also, to protect the dollar, they want to eliminate cash, because to protect the dollar also requires control. So hence the idea of CBDCs, right? So it works against everything that government is about. The government is about control. Government is about controlling the narrative, controlling what we can or can't do. And when I say government, I'm meaning governments around the world, not just the U.S. That is that is kind of their purpose. We are control freaks, and we have narcissists that rise to power, and psychopaths, sociopaths that rise to power because they're power magnets to that, and they will use any weapon or tool on their tool belt they can to maintain power and control. And maintaining power and control, the best way to do is the money, right? Was it Rothschilds? I care not who writes the laws, but basically how much money you have to be able to control
Nathan
and buy and
Rothschild.
bribe a politician. So that's basically really boils right down to our birthday celebration tomorrow. Bitcoin is the ability to have a non-governmental source of money, programmable money that eliminates third party. And when the world wakes up to that ability that has been created, and however it morphs and becomes just that, a true source and inner core of freedom, and there you have it. I think.
I mean, it's interesting you said the Rothschild quote, because I think he actually stated that essentially on the eve of the Battle of Waterloo, which is kind of eerie. And then the piggyback onto the constitutionality of Trump pretty much being in charge of protecting the pegging of the dollar. If Congress weren't a bunch of cowards and wanted to take back the balancing act of what the Constitution's supposed to preserve, all they need to do is just get the majority in Congress to vote and pass a law that dismantles legal tender laws. But that's never going to happen. So, I mean, at least not in our lifetime, that's not going to happen.
Yep. The best. Let's see. Go ahead, Andrew. It's the next one.
Okay. Yeah. How has the regulatory landscape for Bitcoin evolved? What might we expect in the future? I guess that kind of touches base with the Mimblewimble thing. I'll just ask real quick, if you don't think he's going to let them do it, why does it still be talked about openly, do you think?
I think by buying Bitcoin on the open market or direct from miners, if the government were to do that, it's a way of controlling the whole Bitcoin, kind of like Bitcoin Core controlling the code, right? So it's trying to control the market and take advantage of that market, the increase in price. If you think $100,000 Bitcoin is something, once the government, if it passes the House and Senate, which I don't think it will, to be honest with you.
I don't think it will either.
But if it were to, and Trump to sign it into law, oh my gosh, can you imagine the price of Bitcoin? Now that's a pretty good bet. Maybe it's 1,000 to 1 shot, but to put $10 on the table for 1,000 to 1 shot might be worthwhile if you're a betting person. The regulatory framework, though, the regulatory landscape for Bitcoin is evolving, and it's going to continue to evolve. And like I said, I think government is not going to want it to increase too much in value, because they will lose control. It's the horses have left the barn already, and they're gathering some of the horses back by buying Bitcoin and putting it as a reserve so they can control those horses. But really, here's the other scenario. If you want to talk about control, is imagine the fees. Imagine if Bitcoin is worth $10 billion per coin. What are the transactional fees going to be? And that's going to price all the retail people out of the market.
It will. And back in 2017, it was up $1,000 just for one transaction at least.
Yeah. Joe's got a great point here. That would be the deep state angle on it for sure. But constitutionally, his job should be to end the Fed and move control back to Congress. Boys and
of course. Yeah, that goes back to my point. Congress needs to be less cowardly and actually, pass some laws that take away power from the executive branch so that you can actually have a separation of power, and Congress can actually go back to what they're supposed to oversee, and that's the regulatory oversight of the monetary aspect.
Do you think his desire to do term limits for members of Congress has anything to do with that? I mean, it
Yeah.
breaks up their
Yeah.
power grip, I think.
Well,
at least to a
It does.
degree.
I think term limits, this is just me speaking, but term limits, I think, is just a pipe dream. That's just not going to happen. We would like it to happen. Vivek had the best solution is, grandfather it in. You're in Congress, vote for term limits, but it won't apply to you. It'll apply to the person who replaces you in your House seat or Senate seat. So that way they're grandfathered in, and these people can keep getting elected and elected. The incumbents win more than 95% of the time anyway. They age out rather than get voted out.
Well, they use gerrymandering to do that too.
Mm-hmm. And so, it just comes back down to it. Me personally, there's no solution through DC to our problems and our woes. We have to look.
I mean, you got 300 years of
inward.
What's really funny about old Gary, it's actually Gary, not Jerry, was his surname. What's very funny about old Gary back in the 1820s when gerrymandering was created was he was a Democratic Republican. So he was a Democrat.
Wow. So what do you guys think? Do you think the regulatory landscape is going to change for Bitcoin worldwide or US or whatever as the price continues to grow?
I think. Go ahead, Andrew.
I said they're going to continue to try to centralize it, but the more centralized it becomes, the heavier it is to reinforce, which means the whole system kind of goes overboard.
I think we're starting to see a little bit more input in the centralization of it, with El Salvador obviously taking Bitcoin, moving even further into their centrally controlled aspect of Bitcoin as a reserve, in the fact that they're starting to push for more collaborative international I don't know, I can't think of the word, but yeah, they're collaborate way in embracing the international landscape. So like right now they're trying to make deals for a Bitcoin partnership with like countries like Argentina. They're going even farther than that, going into Africa, Asia, some European. So while we're seeing that go down is where you're going to see a regulatory landscape of Bitcoin evolve to a much stricter level to maintain these international partnerships. So whether that's good is one thing, whether that's bad is another. I mean, the world will only know. The world's not going to know until it's actually tried. So, but yeah, that's what the expectation is for the future, is collaborative partnerships, and eventually you will have a fiat subject that's backed by the Bitcoin reserve.
Right.
I see.
The problem isn't DC; it's human nature. He's true. He's absolutely right. Mm-hmm. It's human nature that we get gets greedy with power, and so it's an accurate statement. It's the problem isn't DC. I would a little bit disagree in that the problem is centralized control, and the centralized control frame that we work within, or that's above us, is then you plug in that human nature element, is where it all goes wrong. So if it were more decentralized and more local, it would be less of a burden on our lives.
If you think about it, we got like the European Union, right? And you got BRICS, you got NATO. You have all these like more centralized organizations to cover the territory, the governance territory, and cooperation, and stuff like the Bahamas and stuff like that. They've just implemented their own, and there's one that they're working on for Africa. It's a lot leaner and a lot easier for governing bodies to, consolidate into smaller organizations and to cooperate with each other to enforce the law than it is with more countries. and everybody's on the different page. So I can see how that might be something that they would try to, pivot to and regulate however they feel is necessary.
There's a big part of Congress too that is very anti-Bitcoin or anti-cryptocurrency. Some of it is they're just normies and they don't get it. Some of it is ideologically it doesn't match their political viewpoints or philosophy, and some of them don't want to give up that control. So there's a lot of people in Congress that are very anti-crypto, and there are those that are controlling them through various ways, shall we call it the Intel superstate, that don't want Bitcoin or cryptos to become a powerful tool of freedom, or kind of a freedom movement or a freedom protest by we the people. So they're going to fight for any kind of legislation. But this also goes back to the point about Trump. We have to put it in perspective. Trump is an old man. And as an old man, he is, Bitcoin and crypto is not his norm. It's not in his wheelhouse at all. And
he hasn't really needed it.
Right.
He's been a very wealthy person for a very long time. It's not immediately necessary for him.
Exactly. And he's far removed from that technology, I think. He might be advised or get advice or information of what it is and how it is, and maybe kind of understand the concepts, but he's certainly not using it, I don't think. And if people are saying, oh, you can use Bitcoin this way, well, you really can't, because the fees make it ridiculous. You can't buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin. Well, technically you can, but you're going to pay an outrageous amount because of the Bitcoin fee, right? So because Trump is so far removed from the technology and understanding it, and you could say he's a normie, I don't think he's really going to side with legislation that is going to be really pro-Bitcoin. He's going to always side on what's best for the dollar and what's best for the U.S. government, or maybe as America first, shall we say. So I think that's the viewpoint, or we have to think of it in that way.
Israel first.
Yeah, Israel first.
Israel's biting in the bag. Sorry.
Yeah. Good one.
Let's go ahead and jump on to the next question here. Okay. What are the key technological advancements expected for Bitcoin in the coming years? Touched on this earlier.
I like this image I put up. Can you click on it real quick?
Yeah.
Image. Come on, do something. I love that. Come on, do something. It's usually about price. Come on, do something. If the Bitcoin price was flat, come on, do something. Well, SegWit was implemented, and then the Lightning Network. Come on, do something.
18 months. It'll be ready in 18 months, guys. Just trust us. We know what we're doing. We're the coders. So, yeah.
Easy.
Bitcoin Core, I don't see any real. Just number go up. All the activity is in alternative chains.
Yeah.
And every couple cycles there's going to be a new Ethereum. There's going to be just something big that's going to like we've been talking about here lately, Xano. That's just one of the potentials. So.
What? Go ahead.
Oh, I said, whereas with Bitcoin, I think you pretty much have what you got. I don't think there's anything more that you can advance Bitcoin, because it's kind of just stuck. It's stuck on being a commodity.
It's okay. That's multiple questions here, so I wanted to wait to the end.
Yeah. As you were saying, Zach, I don't know, the Bitcoin really has one capability. It's You can send it or you can hold it, right? Or if you want to call those two things. So it doesn't have any other utility other than, number go up, hodl it, and hope for the number to go up, and hodl it and hope that Wall Street gets more involved, and hodl it and hope that government starts buying it as a reserve. So to run the price up. So that means if you're trying to run the price up, you're really chasing fiat. You want more fiat because eventually you've got a sales price so that you can cash out for fiat. That's what I would think that people are looking at when they look at Bitcoin, as speculation or number go up so that they can cash out to fiat, versus maybe someone who is looking to crypto as a way to exit the system and leave the system as a whole, and use it as like an agorism, a counter economics to the current system. So I think that's what it comes down to. I don't think we're going to see a lot of change in the Bitcoin, and if Michael Saylor gets his way, which it seems like he's got a lot of power and influence, he certainly doesn't want any changes to the code, right? He wants it to stay stagnant and become just
he's
that.
a CIA asset.
Yep.
He's an asset.
Yeah.
I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Michael Saylor is
Like your
CIA.
blue shirt.
So it's actually bluish gray. All right.
Oh, excuse
So
me.
it's
Sorry, forgive me.
More gray.
Blue like my background. There you go.
So there you like Czar 15 says, I'm in it for the tech. Well, if you're in it for the tech, then you're really not into Bitcoin. I mean, because Bitcoin's tech is if they're not going to do anything with it or change the code or do anything with it, then it's set in stone. It's stable. And that's our biggest fear of the CBDCs, right? Did Satoshi's introduction to the world of Bitcoin and what we're going to celebrate tomorrow, the birth of Bitcoin, gave the state the idea of a CBDC. That's pretty scary to think that the monster, it's almost like a twin, like Bitcoin was born and there was a hidden twin that was born at the same time. And now that twin is the evil twin, which is CBDCs, or gave the idea, spawned the idea of a central bank digital currency that is all controlling.
Well,
strategic services. I mean,
it's almost got a Star Trek reference to it. Actually, I mean, you know how data was built and developed to be that perfect sub study of humanity, right? And then before that was Lore, whom was the initial experiment on the emotional aspect of humanity, driven through android form. And you see how Lore is he's just your generic sociopath. So he really doesn't have any emotions, but he plays off of those emotions. And whereas Data is the more kinder, gentler, yet unemotional mainframe. Right. I kind of see that. I see that maybe there was an evil twin that spawned, or maybe Bitcoin is the evil twin.
The evil twin of Data was Lore, remember?
Yeah.
And what was the Dr. Anthony Sue or something? What was his name?
Sue. Anthony Sue.
I think it's
it was either Anthony or Anthony. I know it was Sue.
Like an A, but Sue. But Dr. Simlian Sue or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm horrible with names, but yeah, it's true. Maybe the CBDC is the evil
Dr. Sue.
Dr. Sue.
Yes.
The evil twin is, it would be the birth of CBDCs, which are already out there now. And I always, back in early on and during the discussion of Bitcoin, I remember in 2015, I was thinking that
CBDC.
If I handed cash to you, Zach or Andrew, and there was no transaction fee. The transaction fee was the energy that it
Mhm.
took for me to dig the cash out of my wallet and hand it to you. So that was the
You're
fee. There was no fee to transacting cash.
You know, the CBDC, honestly, I think it's already out there, and I think it's this.
Yes. Oh, Costco or excuse me. Oh my gosh. Well, it really is in all forms
It's
of digital money, right? Our debit
it
card, our
really
credit
is.
card.
Yeah.
They're already monitoring and selling that data to
Yup.
whomever on what we buy and what are my buying habits and what's my revenue coming from
Mhm.
and this kind of thing. The value is
Well,
only
they
what we agree it is. It's if that's true, then marketing is king. Boy, isn't that the truth? That's what
Absolutely.
all these meme coins is about, marketing and being the new
Yup.
thing, the new and
If
they always talk about community. If you're going to start a coin, it's all about community. Well,
Mhm.
community is birthed out of marketing, right?
Right. Well,
Uh,
here's a
All
piece
I
of
gotta
marketing.
say about that data mining and that centralization of marketing by Costco, they got me for a lot of toilet paper. That's all I go to Costco for.
Right.
After yeah,
we shop at
that's
Costco a lot.
about mhm.
Yeah,
Uh,
buy in
like
bulk,
on
baby, buy in bulk.
like when
Exactly.
Lisa shared this just a minute ago. Hold on just a second. I was being facetious when I was talking about marketing. Breaking: the IRS has just issued a temporary relief notice as good news for crypto holders interacting with central CFI exchanges in 2025. Temporary relief under Section 1.1012-1 parenthesis J parenthesis 3 2. So
Mm.
I suppose that's probably good. Probably a good thing. I mean,
Yeah.
they're letting up.
What was the? I'm trying to look it up. There's a bill that's been introduced in Congress to buy Bitcoin. Um, I don't remember what it was called. And who's the sponsor of the bill.
I could.
But it's just insane to me that we would actually try to well, going back, let me go back. When Joe said that if Trump's job is to really protect the dollar, then he should be closing the Fed down, or ending the Fed. And he's absolutely right, isn't he? Because the Fed is essentially printing an endless supply of dollars, which is devaluating the dollar. And if Trump is truly the president to protect the dollar, then he's going to want to curb spending, reduce spending, and reduce the power of the Fed or in the Fed. Um, I don't I don't know if I can see that happening. I would like to think that that's going to happen. I'm be hopeful that that's going to happen, but I'm not going to hold my breath for it.
Right. Do you want me, would you like me to go through the thread here and read it off, or just
Yeah, whichever you want.
okay? Hold on, just a second.
You're talking about the chat thread?
Uh, the one from X that I just had up on the screen.
Oh, okay.
Just a second.
Bitcoin.
Right.
Who would have thought it would have came in fell into this?
Right. Quick background first. The IRS finalized Section 6045 custodial broker CFI broker regulation several months ago. Consequently, starting 1/1/2025, if your crypto assets are held with a CFI broker and you do not choose a preferred counting method like HIFO or the second or Spec ID, the broker will sell your assets under FIFO. Now, there was a practical problem with this approach. Almost all CFI brokers were not ready to support Spec ID as of 1/1/25. This means that you had no option other than selling your CFI assets under FIFO, first in, first out, starting 1/1/25. I think that's what the acronym stands for. In
Yeah.
a bull market environment, this could have been disastrous for many taxpayers because you're unintentionally selling the earliest purchased asset, which tend to have the lowest cost basis first, while unknowingly maximize your capital gains. The IRS recognized this issue and issued temporary transition relief notice on 2025-7 July today. This means if you're
January.
oh, I'm sorry. This means if you sell assets inside a C5 broker, you can still use your books and recording of crypto tax software to document which specific unit you're selling. You won't have to be locked into first in, first out as before. This temporary relief only applies to sales occurring inside CFI exchanges between 1/1/2025 and 12/31/2025. After 12/31/2025, you must pick an accounting method for a CFI asset, with the broker. By this time, I believe many brokers will support all accounting methods. So make sure.
Yeah, it's definitely tailored towards the centralized exchanges, and they're going to report. It's just
yeah.
Forget all, my opinion is just forget all of that and just go privacy coin.
Yeah. Decentralized.
But it's I just looked it up. It's Senator Cynthia Lummis introduced the Bitcoin Act in July of 2024, which outlined acquiring 200,000 Bitcoin annually over 5 years, aiming for a total of 1 million Bitcoin, or about 5% of Bitcoin's total supply. That's what her bill was proposed. I don't. What do you guys think? Do you think it has any chance of passing? Do you think?
Well, I mean,
do you think the majority of Congress, House and Senate, are going to agree to purchase 200,000 Bitcoin annually?
Well, there's still a lot of holdouts who are kind of against it, so I don't see that potentially happening. But they're not going to make Trump look bad on purpose.
No, you still have too many. There's still too many Republicans that just took the Trump endorsement just for an endorsement, so they have their seat, and then you have too many Democrats that are anti-Trump, so they're not. You're not going to see Congress agreeing on anything on this.
Definitely not.
And it has nothing to do with Bitcoin or crypto. It more has everything to do with Trump.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't. I don't see it happening. I don't think the votes are there. And I think the normies aren't gonna understand it, and that's been a big problem for the whole crypto space as a whole. Is a lot of the normies just don't get it; they don't understand it. And and I get it. It's sometimes the idea of handling a wallet and funds can be difficult for some to understand. And some people want, as soon as they get it, they want to spend it, versus looking at it as the whole Bitcoin point of view, as Bitcoin gold, or to try to for its value to go up. And I think regulation around the world being ambiguous created also problems for people to be able to use it to buy a cup of coffee, or grocery purchases, or this kind of thing. One, because early the volatility of the price, so it was difficult to price goods in a cryptocurrency, because so then hence the idea, oh well, what about a stable coin, pegged to a fiat, like say pegged to the dollar. Well, then why use that to purchase anything, and have a fee on top of that, other than, okay, great, maybe no chargebacks and this kind of thing, because all sales are final when you transact like that. But again, you're in the fiat world, which you're subject to inflation, and the devaluation of the dollar, or the devaluation of whatever your fiat is, the euro or whatever. So it makes no real sense. It's much better to have a token pegged to a real asset, and that seems to make much more sense. So the value of that asset is continually climbing, maybe in a slow pace, or generally speaking, climbs in value over time. That seems to make more sense, but keeping the transaction fees low. So, but I get it. Merchants were struggling. Back in the day, before the fork, you could buy an Xbox or whatever with Microsoft and Bitcoin. But the volatility of Bitcoin was creating problems.
Yeah.
And everyone wants that simple road. They don't want to have custody, so they allow our dollar custody is in the bank, right? We're giving the banks the custody of our dollar. So crypto's the same way. People like, oh, I just want someone else to manage my wallet for me and hold it for me.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Which is understandable, I guess.
I'd like to know your opinion about this, William.
Sure.
If they are making it more difficult to transact in Bitcoin, but they also expect people to follow the laws and regulations like this, but they're also printing money to pay their bills, where do they go? Because the money's going out the window. It's more and more difficult to pay the people to enforce the law, but they keep making more laws and more lawsuits against the IRS, people like the IRS and stuff like that.
And the laws are so complex and complicated, like what you're reading there. How can you keep up with that? How can you understand?
Yeah.
Let's go into the link that I just dropped
from the Hill.
Yep. That's where all the resources is going to.
Wow. Let's take a look at that.
Just a second.
Montenegro extradites Duquan to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So another crypto head guy going down the tubes. Not surprising, actually.
Yeah, no. There you go, your police state, right? So I don't know. I'm gonna kind of answer your question, Andrew. I'm gonna kick it back to you. What do you think? Do you think the way the laws are so complicated, do you think we really can adhere to all of them, especially in the world of crypto? And at what point does it become civil disobedience to not adhere to all those laws? At what point is it an act of protest? But is an act of protest becomes a felony, and you open yourself up to all kinds of, they're going to lock you up in a cage. So I'll kick it back to you. What do you think?
When the amount of fear is so volatile and such a steep amount of the population, I think that's when you see that kind of moment transition over, and they say, okay, enough is enough. We can't afford this anymore. It's too difficult, and we have to do something different. And I mean, you'll see like police officers and lawyers and just the best of society saying, no, we can't do this. And they don't have anybody bribe them anymore, trying to make money off of controlling the narrative and the way things are going. So,
right. Well, revolution happens in countries where the people have reached a certain limit, and that limit of tolerance, shall we say, or acceptance or trust in their government. And so revolution happens when the pain point breaches a line, if you will, of no, I'm not going to comply anymore. No, I'm not going to adhere to your unjust laws, or no, I'm not going to. I'm going to look elsewhere for a parallel solution to a problem, to solve a problem. And maybe the pain point is inflation. Well, the U.S. hasn't have the inflation rate of, say, Argentina of over 100%. that it has had, for decade. So we don't have that pain point at that level yet. Not to say that it's not coming. I think it is. The global debt that all these governments have ran up, and thinking that MMT, modern monetary theory, works and that they can print endless dollars, I think is eventually a bubble that could pop, which wouldn't be that pain point that would push people to the edge of saying no longer going to adhere to this. I'm going to start trading, whatever my services, my labor, for eggs or milk or meat or beef or wheat or rice or whatever, and start transacting that way, because the value of the dollar is lost, kind of like the Weimar Republic. And I think it's a pain point that can be measured. And if we use the inflation level, then it becomes a tyranny that is pushed down on the people, and the tyranny, the people either bow to it or they rise up against it. And I don't know at what point that is in the US or in the Western world. I think that's what comes
step up with an answer to that. Get rid of the welfare system. I mean, that's the most
good luck.
Immediate. I know. Good luck. I'm just saying that's the most legitimate rug pull that you can do for such a situation like that and get people to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole reason why the immigration issue right now is such a big topic for a lot of Americans, is because they're for many Americans anymore. They're starting to see that they're competing against the welfare that the government's giving these illegals.
Mm-hmm.
They just want their they want their welfare checks, and they want more of it. And our governments are just handing money out like it's candy canes to illegals, while other Americans are still getting welfare. So I don't even understand why there's an argument at this point. Just let them all come in and let the system collapse. That might be a way to, actually, to your point, honestly, Andrew, that might be a way to end the welfare system.
Well, let's put it a different way. What if the welfare system ends on its own, just because the EBT card and the money that's loaded on the EBT card is not enough for people to survive off of anymore?
That's true. That is true.
So maybe it will naturally devolve into that scenario. Now, what are those people going to do? How are they going to survive and feed their family? What is a father or mother going to do? What are they willing to resort to pay, put food on the table for their children? That's what eventually we will face. Who knows if it's next week or 50 years from now? And I don't see it happen. I don't know. We just don't know when that everything bubble is going to pop.
Yeah.
Is a war going to be started to, it as a diversion tactic from the everything bubble?
Well, I mean, this isn't going to be a police
war.
power. If they do a war, it would be an actual legitimate. Well, not legitimate in the case it's an actual legitimate, but their narrative would say it's a legitimate war. Then it's a real existential threat, and that's how they consolidate the identity or the complete arc of whatever society that was before the war.
Well, speaking of a war diversion, that could be theoretically possible in the immediate future, to start this year, because of how this year started and what happened in New Orleans. I mean, somebody just mauled down like 100 people and like injured like 30 something and killed 10. They found IEDs all around the French Quarter. They're already labeling it a terrorist attack of Middle Eastern descent. And then on top of that, I think there was a Cybertruck that burst into flames in front of Trump Tower somewhere,
exploded.
one of the Trump Towers. So they're already moving towards the war diversion. They're going to probably use this to go to war with Iran.
Yep. That's, if Lindsey Graham and those ilk have their way, that's where we're going. That's,
if it's ever
back to I appreciate Czar15 being active in the chat. Going back to real quick to a couple of points that he made about Dragon Chain and Dragon, being a layer kind of a hybrid layer 0, layer 1. Bitcoin and Ethereum are layer 1s. That interoperability that Dragon Chain has and its ability to scale. If it gets if something, if the SEC is, because right now it's shackled or chained down with its fight against the SEC in its case, and I can say this because I don't own any Dragon Chain, so I can speak openly about it. I feel like a semi non-biased perspective. Dragon Chain is one of those tokens, if you will, a blockchain that has so much potential. Bitcoin has it's so much potential as, shall we say, as a store of gold. Litecoin has its potential because it's like silver to gold in respect to its total quantity and ratio between Bitcoin and Litecoin, and that price differential is ridiculous. So Litecoin has a lot of upward movement potential. Bitcoin Cash and all the things that it can do, and others. Digibyte and low fee transactional coins and other coins and tokens that have utility. So if we start focusing on those and the ability to create parallel systems and grow parallel systems, I think that is really the solution, and simplifying it to a point for normies to be able to use. That is really the solution to get ourselves out from underneath the shackles of centralized control. That is kind of my hope or my dream of a brighter future. And I don't know what it's going to take for us to get there. But we have another huge, and this is my next point to Czar15. We're up against a huge technological major shift when robots can do our day-to-day chores, or self-driving cars can do all of these different things. And when AI is going to replace so many jobs, how we as just the normie human makes a living to put food on the table becomes a big question. And these are things that could create riots and revolution in the streets, because the difference between the haves and the have-nots is going to grow significantly. When the haves can buy more robots that will go out there and mow the lawn, or the self-driving car that will pick up your kids from school and bring them home, and replace, say, the Uber and the Lyft drivers, and all of this new technology that's coming into play, that's, the AI that is going to replace so many jobs. We're going to, as a society, not just the Western world as a whole, is going to have to come to terms and grip to how is having food on the table and a roof over your head a right, because the ability to make an income to do those things and provide for your family is going to become more and more difficult. On the flip side, you can say, well, no, come on, I am. It's the you're talking about the buggy whip. But you and all of us that are watching the show and listening to this, have an open window and of opportunity to invest in the future. And I think blockchain is part of that investment, and to reap a reward of number go up, if you will, by making a change in society and being part of that creation of a parallel system that is going to be one that is better than a centralized one that CBDCs have to offer, or a centralized one that a central, behemoth of a government has to offer, and military might and fights around the world. Because let's face it, I think we the people of the U.S. don't have a problem with we the people within Russia. It's government versus government. It's not people versus people. And when we start recognizing that the blockchain world and the blockchain space can offer a peaceful solution and a peaceful way to create a world of peace, and I firmly believe that, and a way to educate the normies and simplify it for the normies to adopt and use, that's, I guess, a long-term future for it. And we have to recognize that we have it right there in front of us, a blockchain capability that can be implemented in what Satoshi's gift was to the world. No third parties, programmable money. There you go. On my soapbox. I'm sorry, guys.
Well, no, you're fine. I would touch base with what you said and what Zara said here. It's not a money problem; it's a management problem. Okay, they do more automation. They have more people who are involved with just not having to work because it's all been automated. More people pay attention. You're gonna have people that say, "Oh, we need to have automated police officers, this, that, and the other," and then they'll say, "People, oh no, we need actual, flesh and blood police officers." It is pro and con to both sides, right? But in that situation, you have to remember the ratio for police officers and law enforcement to regular citizens is outrageous. It's like hundreds of citizens per one police officer across the country. I'm being hyperbolic here a little bit, but
that's how the market works, though. Unskilled labor is always going to be replaced.
Yeah.
There's
with that being said, more people who are not working, is that going to be a call for more? Oh, we need more. There need to be more police, which means more authoritarian behavior. What do you guys think?
Say that question again. Is what behavior?
With more people not working and saying we need more intervention and more laws, does that open the door for more authoritarian behavior?
Yeah, I think it will. I think it will. Let's just pick one industry, for example. Let's pick the trucking industry. The self-driving vehicle is already, I don't know if any of you have driven a Tesla and its self-driving capabilities, even a Hyundai. Some say that a Hyundai is kind of second place as far as self-driving capability, which is a lower price point in a lot of ways. So many have said for years that it's been regulation that's been the problem of implementing self-driving capability, and lawmakers have slowed that from happening versus its actual ability. Now let's not talk about dirt roads and off roads or inclement weather, snow, or these kinds of things. Let's just focus on the majority of driving that happens on dry roads and the trucking industry. Truck drivers, if truck drivers were replaced, or the majority of the over-the-road truck drivers were replaced, then think of all the people in between. All of the Love truck stops and the TAs and all of the trucks locations where these trucks stop, and people that eat along the way, and the fuel stops. All those jobs, poof, they go away.
They're gone. Yeah.
They're gone. And now think about the people that support that. The driver who brings the whatever supplies or merchandise that's being sold in these places like Love's Truck Stop or TA or Pilot Truck Stop. All of those things go away. So then the manufacturing of those items, or the purchasing of those items that are bringing them, on shore, So then that's less containers that are arriving at port, and less people moving those containers at port to fill the shopping items. Now let's plug in, maybe Walmart distribution and more forklifts that have become more automated. All of these jobs very, very quickly, if regulation allowed it or the unions allowed it, would be gone in a heartbeat. And that's a lot of, you're right. And Zach, it's the low skilled jobs that are going to leave first.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have to we got to come to terms with that, because this is different than the buggy whips. This is different than the horse-drawn carriage and the horses. These are real life humans that put food on the table for themselves and for their families. And
what's actually a scarier aspect is the fact that most of these low wage, unskilled jobs that are going to be out the window, this is going to take a cut to the consumer class too. So then what is the point of actually making or manufacturing anything if nobody is going to be able to purchase it? Is it just going to be a playground for the rich? And they're not going to want half of the garbage that's out there anyways.
This sounds like
maybe they will.
Yeah. If we're talking about programmable money and we're talking about, universal basic income, UBI, I'm not for that. Or, but I don't know what the solution is to this problem, because UBI also, guess what that means? That means that's USD, that's CBDCs. That's not going to be programmable money. It's not going to be Bitcoin or Litecoin or that's going to be plugged into that. For UBI, I don't know. I don't know the answer to this problem, but that problem, it's like a tidal wave. We see it out there in the ocean, and that tidal wave is coming in to shore real quick. AI is amazing.
Is this another instance of the White Army versus the Red Army, where both sides are kind of screwed up, but nobody can seem to make a decision?
Maybe. Yep. But blockchain, we have the middle class is shrinking. And I'm not, because I like free market. I don't like to call it capitalism, but the free market will always win. The free market, it's the law of economics. It always wins, irregardless of the state, because the free market can outlast the state. It will, lives in eternal, but the government is not eternal. So the free market will ultimately win. Economy, the law of economics will ultimately win. Maybe not in your lifetime, but we are facing not an extinction moment, but a job extinction moment, if you will. And wow, I know there's this part of the solution is going to include blockchain. That's my optimistic viewpoint.
My understanding
I will like to add that is the population reduction that they are aiming for, because that's the most realistic population reduction. Get rid of the jobs, you get rid of the way of life for most people. A lot of people starve.
Unemployment, you can chart unemployment and you can chart deaths. By the higher the unemployment, the higher the death rate.
Yep.
They go hand in hand.
My understanding of charts and just different things about them, like trading charts, is once there's a highly volatile situation like there was during the pandemic, where such a large amount of people were unemployed, it will eventually return to that and surpass that level. So you have to keep that in mind too. We might have another black swan event where such a large amount of people are unemployed. I can't give you a prediction as to how long it'll be, but it is a healthy correction mechanism for the market.
Can I got to speak to the chat here. Coca-Cola says, "Get this man a dragon," and I am no dragon trader. Yeah. Let me preface why I don't own dragon. Back in the day when I was buying various different cryptos and this kind of thing, I had a hard, fast rule. This is 2016. if there was a U.S. company, I wasn't going to invest in it because I felt that the U.S. regulatory laws were going to come down hard on U.S. companies. And so I didn't buy U.S. based blockchain coins, tokens, utilities, whatever. So that was kind of my hard, fast rule. So that's why I really liked what Dragon Chain was doing and had to offer, but I just never bought it because I had wrote that
It's a
protocol
principle.
for myself, my personal viewpoint. I crossed it, if you will, when I bought Matter, which is Den.Social. I crossed that in that regard because I looked at Den.Social as more of a decentralized platform with a worldwide reach, and it was a little different than Dragon Chain. So that's why I never bought and held Dragon Chain. In many ways, I think I was wrong because what Dragon Chain, and now that I've learned more about Dragon Chain, what it has to offer and what it can do, I just wanted the SEC case to end and be settled. And because I saw that the regulatory creature from Jekyll Island, shall we say, was raising its head and it was going to start attacking. And when Dragon Chain was called the ETH killer because it could scale and Ethereum couldn't, I was like, wow. And then that became even a bigger target. So there you have it, guys. If in case you wanted to know, that was my hard, fast rule. I believe in Dragon Chain, and I certainly believe in Den.Social. But everyone needs to do their own due diligence and decide what they want to invest in, or invest even just time. You can just be a social media miner. That's what I call it, Den.Social. So there you go. Sorry.
Just as a matter of transparency.
By now, before it goes up.
Right. I did participate in the ICO, but we all know how that went. It went from $5 down to 0 cents. Now it's moved back up, and I have purchased a little since it bounced. So
good.
I think I'd let you guys know.
Good for you. Let's see what else. What else is on the list? What else is going on in we talked about the New Orleans thing. What else is going on in the world?
Well, OHIO. There you go.
Football. Ohio State beat Oregon.
Yeah. That was a pretty good match, what I've heard. Pretty good game.
Pretty good match. That's what I call speaking of ETH killer or Dragon Slayer. That was murder.
I'm not a big sports person. I don't watch it with anybody. I like watching it. I just don't have anyone to watch it with. So,
that's funny.
Yeah, forgive me.
And now we get to play Texas.
Oh boy!
The first time first time these two teams have met inside Texas since 2006. It'll be fun.
Oh shoot!
You guys.
No, what else is going on in the world? We got. I guess Trump, as it happens for every president, they get frustrated because their appointments get held up in Congress or slowed. Yeah. It's a battle that happens every 4 years, regardless of who's elected. It's a tit for tat, and it's a control point. It's a flexing their muscle to get, negotiation to get some other kind of kickback or power struggle. It's disgusting.
Speaking of kickback and power struggle, I mean, Trump has endorsed Mike Johnson to remain as Speaker of the House. So we'll see how that goes after tomorrow when everybody gets inaugurated.
Well, we saw that coming, right? We saw that coming because Johnson was spending a lot of time at Mar-a-Lago and with Trump, and you're seeing all the photo ops, at the MMA fights, and I love the idea of make America healthy again. we could lower our medical costs if we just became more healthy as a population dramatically.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Um,
Big time. I don't like the enforcement apparatus that they're going to be utilizing, but at the same time, we can definitely use that to hopefully educate people,
mhm.
stop being fat, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I like how that has. Oh well, the whole H1B battle with Elon and the
Oh
race
yeah.
and MAGA and the
Mm-hmm.
infighting there. That's a story.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows the kind of I think it call it childish, how people got banned on X by Musk
Mm-hmm.
because this is his sword to die on.
So much
I
for
think-
being impartial.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
All I gotta say right there is, you people put a lot of your time, energy, and even money into Elon Musk and his technocratic, true yet transhumanist agenda.
Mhm.
Hey, what's wrong with
So-
transhumanism?
A lot, everything. You gonna take the Neuralink, implant it to
If I
your
get
brain?
a chance, we'll find out. Yeah.
Um,
Come on, guys. Help me
Some
get a
anarchist
Neuralink.
you are.
Yeah, let's take up a fund, raise some funds for Andrew's Neuralink.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Zach, you going to donate to that?
I'm gonna donate my
Hair plugs.
blood.
I need hair plugs. Come on, guys.
Hair plug. Oh,
You don't
jeez.
need hair plugs.
You don't need it because
Ah.
your Neuralink is going to change your vision. So when you look at yourself in the mirror, it's going to see that you got hair. So it's going
I
to alter
was
your brain
bald.
that way. We don't need to. We just got to alter your thoughts and what you see, not
Yeah.
actually put hair on your head.
We're gonna hijack the host, huh?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
hijack
You're
I
gonna
take the
have
host.
you're gonna look in the mirror with that Neuralink, and you're gonna see long flowing blonde locks of a true perfect race of some
thought it was going to
particular
be
person.
blue. I thought we would change it every once in a while. Maybe every Saturday he'd see blue hair.
Hey. I mean,
We're,
if it
we're
works,
not
it works.
Democrats here.
I just want to mess with his head. Get it? Oh,
Right.
oh, shoot.
Okay.
What? No. What do you think about this whole H1B thing? This fight. What do you
I
guys
mean,
think about that?
Hmm.
Legal immigration
I-
versus
I think
undocumented.
it's a way for social pressure for the people behind the scenes to
Mhm.
influence people's opinion.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It's just another virtue signaling culture war
yeah.
epidemic. That
It's
really
something
is
for
all
them
it is.
for the media to latch onto so that they can spin a narrative.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know. With that, maybe it's time to bring some things back to the United States and educate people in getting into those fields, and then you wouldn't have the issue of this HB1 visa situation. I mean, that's where it is, really. I mean, it's not I think the MAGA people kind of show their true colors of where they kind of stand on the color barrier, I guess. But at the same time, it's how the market works. I mean, the reason there's not a whole lot of Americans taking certain jobs that say in India, and like let's say the medical field, there's probably more doctors in this country that are from the Indian subcontinent than
Mhm.
Americans, because nobody wants to get into that field anymore. It's too high stress, there's too much money that has to get poured in. You go into too much debt, and then by that point, when you're all said and done, you expect to get compensated for all your hard work because you kind of need it in order
Right.
to pay down your debt. So nobody's getting in. Nobody wants to be a doctor anymore. at least not from the perspective of America. Not to say that
Look,
there aren't
the
kids
funny
out there trying to become a doctor.
the funny thing is, I worked at a medical college. My last job as a armed security guard for them while they were trying to get on that level to be educated for that. There's an international standard and a national United States standard,
Mhm.
and if you're coming from India, you're being taught on you're being taught the international standard, not the United States standard. So
Mhm.
they're on different levels, and there's more a risk of something going catastrophically wrong because they're not on the same page.
They're
Yes.
effectively they're measuring it on the intelligence that is perceived on Americans, because our wavelength of the international to United States standard medical standard, it's pales in comparison. Like, we are stupid, at
Yes.
least to our standardization. We're stupid, so
Well,
things can go wrong.
yeah. Well, let's put it a little bit in perspective. We're not churning out enough engineers from our universities. Enough engineers
too.
that are asked or are positions that are available.
Mhm.
So companies are looking for a solution to fill those spots, and if we're not producing enough engineers for those positions, then they want to go outside of the U.S. and bring them over on a visa. So I get that.
Mhm.
There are other industries. Back in the time, there were issues with a truck driver shortage, and people were looking at drivers from Canada or Mexico to come over and work with visas to drive
Mhm.
in the U.S.
But
And
they
there
still
are
have a shortage.
Yeah.
So there's been all kinds of shortages, and then there are the jobs that, quite frankly, as lazy fat ass Americans, some of us don't want to do it. We don't want to go work in the fields and pick strawberries or
No,
peaches or nectarines or grapes or
that sounds
whatever.
fun.
And so we look to other countries. But this is not just an American problem. This is a centuries and thousands a year problem. People will migrate to go where the jobs are, and look for a better life. They go where they're treated best. So if if we can't fill the engineering jobs, and we have to look elsewhere. And hey, why don't we have some more testing going on? Like, let's bring in the smartest and the brightest into this country and give them a faster pass into the country. Hopefully, though, it will be done right and correctly and fair, just that we're hiring people that were here already, were US citizens already. Hopefully we're hiring them first and not just off of the cheaper dollar worker. And unfortunately, that's what companies do. They hire the cheaper dollar all the time. Yeah.
I'd like to make a retroactive comment about my previous comment. Just a small correction. Historically, the United States has always has went to a country like Germany for their medical, expertise. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure that I did point that out because I don't want to leave that off the table.
Is
Gosh,
that the reason why? Yeah, that makes sense that eugenics came to America pretty quickly.
Didn't it start
pretty
here,
much.
went to Germany, and
Oh yeah, it started here, went to Germany, and then we imported it back when Germany kind of
yeah,
revigorated it and made it better.
Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, Operation Paperclip.
Well, hey guys, we're at 153 mark. I think we should probably start in this so we can get it in the books before the 2-hour mark, right?
Yeah.
Might as well.
So,
Yeah.
Zach, do you have anything you wanted to comment about real quick?
Do I have anything to comment about? Keep stacking Bitcoin, keep stacking Bitcoin Cash, keep stacking gold, silver, because we are in for a wild ride. Also, don't miss the Legacy Ride every Friday. We're gonna do 11 a.m. tomorrow, live stream. So wake up, get ready, everybody. get your cup of coffee, and then listen to us losers talk about something at
William, what's
11
going on
a.m.
with you?
Eastern.
Well, I just came back from vacation in Hawaii, and I'm going to be starting up a Den.Social channel and highlighting Den.Social, and also taking over the Den.Dao posting. That's so we can have a discussion weekly about the Den.Dao, and look forward to my role in the 2025 as emperor of all social media. That's self-declared, but I was voted a real life. I'm a real life emperor of the Den.Dao, emperor of the Den.Social. So if you want to know a little bit more about Den.Social, come follow me, and I'm excited for 2025. Happy New Year, everybody. 2024 is dead and gone, and 2025 is bright and prosperous for everybody.
Well, Emperor, I have one question before we leave.
Sure.
Are you the emperor of the federated networks, or does that leave a spot for me?
Say that again. Of federated networks? I didn't.
A federated network.
The decentralized social networks besides that.
Yeah, I'm self-proclaiming myself of emperor of all social media. So
I don't know.
that has a wide range.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to be emperor of Mastodon with everything that's going on over there that they're in trouble for.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's yeah. I won't take responsibility for any of their illegalities.
Neither did Ross with Silk Road. So,
No.
But look what happened to him anyway. So,
well, I always got Lemmy, but for today, I hijacked this podcast. Look for Joe to come back next week. You guys have a good one. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.
America is not the government, people. The America is you. It is the Grand fucking Canyon, the Rocky Mountains, the deserts of the Southwest, the Pacific fucking Ocean, the Atlantic fucking Ocean. It is the grandest continent. And what the fuck have you people done? You have turned yourself into sheep, every goddamn one of you.